For decades, voices from every realm have spoken their truths. Real people have presented research into new ways of understanding our existence, the worlds we inhabit and create. Science defines the forces of energy, electricity, and magnetism. Religion tells the stories of our possible ways and the heavenly powers. Maybe you see it as I do, magic. It's up to us ordinary magicians to make sense and purpose of it all, to bring magic back into the world, the actual world. We have all the information, wisdom, and tools. I'm Pat Catchpole, a.k.a. Yarman, and I think that together we can explore, understand, and most importantly, put magic to use. Since the harmonic convergence of 1987, the past decades have seen drastic changes in the world. Big magic is happening in our hearts, in our homes, on our planet, in the solar system, galaxy, and beyond. Has Mother Earth made her shift? It's up to us, the ordinary magicians, to begin to practice co-creation in harmony with our planetary host and the greater cosmos. Welcome to Ordinary Magic Radio. Normally that intro would be read by Zen Deviant, Alan, who wrote it. Very nice job, Alan. We had a couple of glitches, this being our first show, and what happened was that we lost the first 10 minutes. This is me trying to patch it back together. Our guests were Magartha, Kathy Vick, L9QW, Wes Annick, and Love's Light 1964, Marie, and sorry, Marie, I have forgotten the name. We will, however, be having each of these people back individually in separate interviews, and we will certainly catch up on their stories as soon as we possibly can. Stick with us. Should be good. Thank you.
There she is. I see her on the little gizmo there.
Yes, I see her again now, too.
Here I am.
Oh, good.
Hey, the show must go on. There she is.
There you are. Oh, I was hanging on every word, too. I'm sorry, because that was amazing.
No worries.
Go ahead, Pat.
I guess if I have a story like you guys do, I never have had an awakening. I loved what Zen said before about a lotus blossom, because back in the 60s when I was an official hippie, I started with Tibetan Buddhism was the first thing I explored, and one of the things that they talk a lot about in that is the opening of the lotus. So that was pretty cool that you said that. But that's how I started. I started studying Eastern religions, and then I moved into Urantia. I studied the Urantia book for a few years, and I basically just haunted New Age bookstores because, of course, we didn't have the internet back then. I just unfolded myself petal by petal. It's just that simple.
And here we are. I guess that leaves me. I'm just this guy. I grew up. I was born in the Midwest in Kansas and moved to Dallas, Texas when I was a young man. And honestly, my family is about the waspiest, most Republican, like, I don't know, like Leave It to Beaver on crystal meth or something. But it was just. My dad used to always tell me, look, you can do whatever you want. And then anytime I would say what I wanted to do, that was not, that was important. In other words, I was empowered and disempowered simultaneously. But anyway, I grew up that way and I joined the Navy, and I'm kind of like Pat as far as my awakening goes. I always wished I was a little bit more disciplined. I wish I worked harder at it. I wished I read more stuff. I read a lot of stuff. I like to see it all overlay. It's fascinating to me to read different traditions, from the Bible into all the New Age, so much different stuff out there. But ultimately, it seems like the prevalent and most true message is that love really is the answer. And so my personal life, as far as my finding a career or defining myself in 3D terms, never really seemed to work out for a variety of reasons. And one of the first things that happened to me on Lightworkers is I went through somebody asked what jobs you've had, and I ended up having like 27 different jobs that I'd had in real life, and it was amazing to me. And anyway, at one point I also kind of struggled with mental illness, maybe if you want to call it that, or the feeling of not fitting in. And I locked myself in my room when I was 18 years old, after I dropped out of college the first time, just literally boarded myself in my room at my folks' house, and went from there into a psych ward. And another 20 years later, I went back into a psych ward, the same kind of thing. But I guess in my deep, dark depression times, I would say I could never kill myself, because it seemed like it wasn't my job, or it wasn't my responsibility, or it really wasn't my, it wasn't, and so I get mad at God, and I'd say, well, I didn't like what I'm doing with this life. You take charge of it, and you do what, with me as you will. And I guess if there was an awakening, it's that it occurred in that way. But it's for me, every day is a struggle to try to figure out how to do this, how to do the light work, how to love, and how to throw yourself more completely into it. And that's why it's so fascinating to me to hear Wes talk about at 20, talking in these terms, because I can remember very clearly when I was in the Navy having a dinner with my sister, and I told her that I thought Jesus was a swell guy, but they were my sins, and I didn't feel like it was his responsibility to die for my sins. And she broke into tears because we'd been grown up in the traditional church and everything. But then later on, when I guess I needed it, and I revisited my Christian roots, I found a lot of different things in there that I guess I feel like I know a different Jesus than I did before, or thought I knew, or any of that kind of thing. So Pat referred to me as a good Christian gentleman the other day in a email, which really made me laugh, because I haven't been to church. I'll go to church with anybody who invites me, but I'm not a member. I'm not involved in. I think that there's a great deal of value in all those different things. It's just, for my path, it's been important, I guess, inadvertently or intentionally, to remain unaffiliated. I compare myself. I like the idea of I don't remember if the character Tom Bombadil in the Lord of the Rings. He was a crazy guy who lived in the woods, and he was unaffiliated, and to the point that no one really sure where he landed. And so I believe in kind of sneaking around and doing as much good as I can and loving as strong as I can without letting anybody see me. And that's why it makes me twitch to sit here and talk on a microphone into what will soon be a radio show. So, there we have it. And so my awakening, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't had any good, I had an experience when I was 5 years old where I saw something outside of my room that was kind of spooky. At the time, I thought it was the devil. There's a second-story window, and, I was told it was a dream and forget about it. And here I am, 52, still talking about it. So it must have had some impact. But, and then this idea that I've always been a caver, like, in stress times, like in first or kindergarten, it was about the same time as the guy showed up. I basically skipped kindergarten and hid in a garbage can for a whole day. And then the thing boarded myself in the room, and all, 20 years of talking to shrinks, I would hide out, literally, and, not talk to anybody. Wouldn't open the door for anyone. Anyway, another good awakening moment for me was learning to meditate, which allowed me to do what I so wanted to do without the guilt or the stress or the feeling like I'm lazy or doing nothing. And so for me to learn to sit still and watch my breath, I don't know, just the idea that doing nothing is not always a waste of time. And so I don't know if that's my story, but that's enough of it to fill in this bit of time. Where shall we move on to next, crew?
You know what? You said something interesting that popped out in my mind, so I'm going to kind of flow with it. But you said something about how, remember about being, and how we need to be okay with that. I think we all have been programmed in so many ways to think that the only way that we do good for our world is to do. We need to do this. We need to do that. There's some sort of involvement of actual physical doing, or somehow you're just not enough. And I think for me, the biggest shift has been within me, and the fact that I've come to the realization that really and truly I don't need to do. That is my choice, but it isn't that I have to do, because I am who I am and what I am, and that is enough, being a child of, being an aspect or a fractal of source. But that concept for me, I always keep thinking like, I'm not doing enough, or I need to do more. And I for myself have really been working at trying to remember to accept the fact that sometimes there is no doing, and sometimes I don't have the energy to do. Sometimes all I have the energy to do, or all I have the energy for, is to just be. And not feel guilty about that, or not feel like it's not enough, or that somehow I'm not contributing, because I think every single soul, or 7.5 billion of them that are here, really, their light is within them all, and they just need to be that. So I don't know why that popped into my mind, but it's so hard to just be sometimes, and
I have something
and accept
to add to that, just for a second. And it's a credit. It's a credit to the powers. They are good.
Yeah.
They got us all.
Oh, yeah.
They got programming down to a fine art. They've got cultures. They've got nations. They've got communities, all organized in how they think.
Mm-hmm. Religions. Yep. Yeah, no.
And in my opinion, divisiveness is what feeds that programming more than anything else. As long as we can be taught to believe that we're different from somebody else because of a difference in religious viewpoint, a difference of where we live, color of our skin, you name it, as long as that divisiveness is still there, I feel like it could continue to drive everything that's holding our world back, and I feel like it could continue to reinforce that programming that nobody has really questioned for so long.
Right. That divide and conquer mentality, I think, that way you keep people from becoming one, or strengthening together.
I want to mention first that I want to tell you how appreciative I am of your honesty, and I do want to touch on some of the notes that you struck. I think that all of us who are older, who are in the first wave, is how I've come to see it. Those who are old souls who are programmed sort of to wake up. Many of us held the need or the wish to die, and many of us struggled with suicidality throughout our lives. And this comes from feeling so alienated, not being alienated, but feeling so, and not understanding what or who we are. And really, I found it to be a metaphor for my only desire, which is to go home. And I was just painfully homesick for most of my life. And I will tell you of an event that occurred. I was working with the teachers, and I knew I could ascend. I knew I could go home. They could pluck me up and take me away. And one night after a shift of work, I was so on my knees tired of everything, just people's crap and just everything. And I drove away crying, and I said, I'm done. Just take me now, because I'm finished. And I heard loud as the person next to me said, fine, just go to that parking lot then. It was sort of like, fine, you want it? You can have it. So I parked dutifully, and I said, all right, I'm ready. And they said, all right, are you sure? Because we can do this now. And I put my key in the ignition, and I went home. It was a very quiet, null kind of a ride home. And I went to the teachers later, and I said, I don't understand how I can long for death so much and want to be out of here, just done with it. And I'm given this opportunity, and I walk away? What is wrong with me? And they only gave me two of these experiences, but they said, just come with us. And we went into meditation, and I found myself in a white place. And they said, you are to go to this room, and you are to become satisfied, and don't come out until you're completely rested. And it took a long time, and I came out, and I was with beings who were quite tall. I went to a window and looked down, and they said, now we want you to look. And there was the earth. And they said, you have a choice in front of you. You can stay here with us, and from here, We can do a lot, but we can't do what you can do. Take a look. And I first could hear, and I heard cries, and I heard people, such sadness, and I could feel it in waves. And they said, you can be there to wipe the tears and visit your friends in the hospital and comfort people. You can do that. We can't. But it's hard, and you get to decide. And here I am. I've had NDEs. I've had experiences which I should have been dead, and I'm not, and they were beautiful experiences. And anymore, I just feel like my physical body is going to crap out at some point. It's bound to. But I hope it's in a good long time. And in the meantime, I'm immortal. And this physical body is tissue. And so it's beautiful tissue, box. And the other thing I want to say is that, the solstice was sort of a dud event for me. It was just sort of like, finally now everyone's talking about ascension, so maybe we can get on with it. Finally I've got friends. But there was nothing really that lit me up, and I was kind of bummed out about it in a way. And then on the way home from New Year's Eve, it was a very low time in my life, very, very screwing up, and there was a lot of things going on. And I didn't feel very good coming home, and I rested my head on the seat thing and put my arms over my son's chest, who was in front of me. And all of a sudden, I swear to God, everything, just like the Matrix goes green, everything got gold. And I'd had sparklies before, but this was it. This is what I always go to. The truth of the matter is that we are desperately in love with one another. All of us. We love each other so much.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we're in love with each other. Even when we hate each other, we love each other. And everything else is just what it is. But it doesn't matter, and it's really okay. And I can look after myself around mean people, not a problem. But they just don't get me as much because I just love them. And that's what I came back with. My big sparkly moment is that we are physically emanations of a live light that is love itself. So how bad can it get, really?
Absolutely.
So that's what I have to say.
That was beautiful. Wonderfully said.
I reached that exact same point in 1970.
Wow.
Exactly where you were. This is it. I can't do it anymore. I'm too tired. It hurts too much. I just want out. But I couldn't kill myself because I have sacred contracts here. And if I don't fulfill these contracts, I'm going to have to reincarnate and do it again. And I didn't want to do that.
Nobody wants to do that.
So I actually had written everybody, that I loved, a letter to tell them I'm out of here. And then I started studying about walk-ins, and I thought, well, shoot, if there's a possibility of a walk-in, I'm having that. And I meditated on it, and I prayed for it, and I begged, and I pleaded, and I just did everything I could to trade inner selves. And finally I did.
Wow.
That's very interesting.
That's interesting.
And I was telling Zen the other day, one of the most interesting things about it was the self that came in place of the original self was male. Super male.
Really?
That is definitely interesting. I've studied the subject of walk-ins a little bit myself, but I don't think I've heard of the idea of consciously choosing to bring a walk-in soul in. That's very interesting, Pat.
Yeah, I don't think I have either. And as a matter of fact, I was talking. Do you guys know who Alpha Ra is?
Can't say that I do. No.
Oh, he's a guy. Anyway, I was talking to him one time, and he told me it wasn't possible.
I think that's very clever and very beautiful.
Yeah, see, that's one of the things that we get into on Lightworkers that's so fascinating and important. It's just beautiful to me. is we're all talking about being crazy, and that's just a popularity contest. And if we're really doing good light work, we're throwing ourselves right in the middle of the muck, and of course they're going to think we're crazy. But it is nice to have the affirmation from each other. But lost my train of thought. Oh well.
I'd like to go back to last year's solstice. I'd like to know how everybody feels about if something did or didn't happen, and how you were affected by it.
Well, I guess
I heard.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go.
Okay.
I just heard Bashar. The only. Oh my God! You go ahead, Wes. I'm going to shut up. Go ahead.
It's all
Don't
good.
shut up, baby. Never shut up.
The voice says Wes talks now.
Well, I was just going to say that I guess everybody's December 21st, 2012 experiences, for the most part, I guess you could say that they came about at least a little bit as a result of everybody's individual perception of the event. I do feel like deep within, perhaps underneath the surface, even for those who may have been meditating, may have been really trying to adjust to the new energies we were told that, we would be entering into, I feel like some kind of effect, because of the nature of the event, how much it's been prophesized, how much it's been talked about, I do feel like something happened on this date, but that it was much more of a beginning point, an initiation point, a point where a new level of awareness and active, I guess you could say, work for the restoration of the planet reaches everybody through a steady process still, but I do feel like throughout this year of 2013 we've made a good amount of progress. But I basically feel like, according to what you expected individually, I think there could have been something genuine that happened to all of us, even if only a little bit. And I also feel that what happened on that date was intended to motivate us and, like somebody else said, get us talking about ascension and restoring our planet, and see us really take the reins and begin doing this work. That's how I feel about the solstice.
Okay,
I'm pretty much in agreement with that. I think that I actually quite liked Drunvalo's Melchizedek. We'll all go to bed in 30 hours. We'll all wake up and be fully enlightened 5D beings. I kind of liked that idea.
Yeah.
But I think what the solstice was a start button.
Yeah.
Absolutely, definitely. A trigger pointer, an initiation point to help those of us who've already become awakened see the necessity to begin getting to work, and to help those who aren't awakened awaken,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I wrote about that. I actually found myself in a very strange time during that, and was guided ended up in Peru. At the time, was on a plane on the Sunday before the 21st heading to Peru, because about a week before that I literally woke up and all that was anywhere around me was, you have to get to Peru. You have to go to Peru now. And I didn't know anything of what was going on. I knew that, that the energies were building, because I'm so connected to the grid, that I read the energies of, that I knew something was being either attempted to be, or, something was attempting to manifest, or, the powers that be, the dark team, the light team, whatever it was. And so I wasn't very sure of what all was happening, but I knew I had to get to Peru, and indeed I did. And when that happened, I ended up finding out that there was just a massive, scare tactic that was going on in Quito, Peru. And I wrote about it actually at the time, and I felt like that was the reason why I was called to go there, because in many ways for me, the way that I saw the 21st was as a tipping point. I think that we as a consciousness and as a collective consciousness stood right at the tipping point of trying to decide whether we were going to continue and head toward and experience a healing planet, or whether we were going to experience the death of a planet. And I think we were at the point where the consciousness made a decision. And that is why during that time, it seems to me, from what I understand, light workers were being dispatched and relocated to weird places all over the world to ground the light, to bring, to get rid of whatever the fear tactics that was going on at the time. And to me, the 21st was a collective choice to heal. And I very much feel it as a shift towards returning to our hearts by the whole collective. And now I'm probably, a lot of people think I might be a little more optimistic, but I really felt as if we made a choice and it went to the healing aspect of our world. Does that make sense?
It does.
And I think that's why we were all so busy working towards it, and we all knew something big was happening, and we all ourselves made personal, decisions as to where we were going to be. And I think we really did make a difference, and it worked. Obviously, part of the divine plan being what it is.
Is there anyone in this group who lives where they grew up or near where they grew up?
Yes, I do.
You do. Well, you're not grown up yet.
That's what I've grown up to do.
And here's a piece of advice: don't bother.
Don't grow up.
Don't grow up. It's no fun.
Right. No, I actually do live around here, and obviously being younger, living in this area that I lived in, I never realized the energy of the area, because a lot of people don't realize it, because, there are a lot of sleeping people around here, and I guess everywhere, but I've always been here, and I've grown more recently in the past couple of years here in this area of Illinois that I live in to find a greater connection with the land, a greater spiritual connection, something I'm sure you guys can all understand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I had no expectations for the 21st at all. I think it's a hopeful thing. I think if anybody who's doing light work and feels the trudge or the grind or the feel like you're doing the right thing and you're doing it every day and it's hard and you get tired and you'd like for someone to come over and just finish it.
Yeah.
And so anytime somebody says, well, Thursday it's going to be all over, and you're like, okay, that sounds great. I'm all for it.
I'm in.
I'll tell you something cute about my mother. I told my mother all about December 21st. And she was hanging out for it. She's 91 years old, and she was hanging out for it.
She was ready.
She was ready for the world to change. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I really. Go ahead.
I think we're all ready for the world to change. I think that the number of those that wish for change now really is starting to grow. I think that this wave, and of course, we're in this conscious revolution that is occurring on our planet. I'm going to call it that. But with these energies that are coming in and supporting and helping, I think that everybody is waking up more and more to remembering. And I'm ready. I'm first. Let me know what that date is. If they give me another date, okay.
I was just checking because I lost it.
I notice a theme amongst all of us is the choice. There's always a free will choice what we're going to do with any of the things that happen to us. It's like, okay. And like Kathy said, it's just something in you that says, well, I guess, yeah, it's tough and it's confusing, and the people have chosen to put myself amongst seem to think that I'm full of it, but I know I'm not, and so I'll just keep going. And that's the choice on any given day, is just to stand up and say, okay, I'm gonna keep at it. And it's and I think the change doesn't. It's so hard to see. I think about a snowflake in a glacier. And it's like, you're just sitting there frozen in this glacier, and it's like, oh my God, I'm not doing anything. But you're moving down, and then all of a sudden one day, you're in the ocean, you've fallen right off, and you're no longer a snowflake or a drop of water, and tomorrow you might be a cloud. It just seems like that. That brings me to a subject that I want to throw out to you all, is time, and the passage of time, and is it a linear passage, or are we affecting the passage of time, or has time sped up, slowed down? What do you think?
Well, I do think that time has sped up a great deal, but I also think that it's because our perception of time is changing. We're coming to see time as an illusory aspect of the lower dimensional reality that we exist in. Humans, as we exist on the earth under our third dimensional perceptions, we experience time in a linear fashion, but through the powers of meditation, through our own abilities to grasp a deeper state of consciousness, we can reach a state of timelessness in that deeper state of consciousness, and we can come to see time for what it's meant to be seen as, actually not linear at all, but very, I guess you could say, fluid, able to be influenced by humans, like you said. And that's another interesting subject that we could talk about, the fact that even as we exist in a distorted, within a distorted idea of time, we're still actually affecting the flow of time and the events that manifest in the collective consciousness. That's my view on that.
Man, you're well spoken for a young man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very, very well. Very articulate. I agree. Time is something that I think is it's one of the things I've studied, and I've been able to compress it and play with it, and it's very fun to do when you actually put like an hour's worth of stuff into a half an hour and then look at it and go, what? I haven't been able to consciously do that, although I understand now it has a lot to do with the spin. It has a lot to do with I think that time has a magnetic quality, and it's a form of physics, and as such it's consciousness over physics basically, and it has to do with spinning, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but just being in the spin. When you're in the spin and everything is just in full alignment and you're clear and everything is beautiful. It's nice when you have those times, and then to be able to extend them, I think that affects time. I've never been stuck in linear time. I don't like going for job interviews because I can't remember what year I did what, and it's very embarrassing. It's very embarrassing.
In reality, it's everything you've done is in the now, so it's almost kind of a distortion of the limited human perception to try to squeeze everything you've done that's ultimately in the now into a certain time when time is collapsing and fading away,
Yeah, they were talking about how time was collapsing, or how timelines were all merging, and David Wilcock was talking about this Alice in Wonderland chair that you could sit in and see they would sit in it and they'd ride to 2012 and zoom, there'd be like this wall of light and they couldn't go any further. And I saw there was a date for me that was like that. There was simply a wall of light. I knew that I would probably exist after that, but I wasn't convinced of it, and I could not see after that date. And I do think that there's a time fractal going on that, I was expecting with 2012, dang it, I want to light up. I want to light this candle. I wanted to turn into light and have all this happen, and it didn't. And so part of me was just but I had been wrestling with that prior to that. And I'd gotten working with Cryon, and I realized I might be in this for the long haul. Holy moly. But then I was also realizing it wasn't really hurting as much to be here as it used to. So that began to all merge. And then by the 21st, I heard Bashar talk about it like a door that was opening. There's the 12 and the 12, and then the door swinging, And I thought that was kind of nice. But I just kind of thought it's just a day. It's just a manufactured day like Halloween or whatever. It's just a day that we've all decided as a collective that we're going to maybe expunge some of this end time engram that we have clinging to us, that, that we all came in expecting that the world was going to end in 2000, and it didn't. And we needed to get rid of that darkness and that heaviness, and I think there was a lot going on under the surface with that day. So although I am very facetious about it, and it is very nice to have company now, but it seemed to legitimize discussion of this type, and I'm very grateful for it. And then I got lit up like a candle, so it all worked out good.
I'm like you. I like the discussion. I've noticed if you ask me what change I would see, it's the quality of conversation and the fact that I can talk about love and God and light and energy and the changes in the world on a cosmic sense, and people don't roll their eyes as much as they used to.
Yeah.
So much.
And I think too, what's really cool about that I've been noticing is, because I just, at this point, I just say whatever comes to my mind, obviously. But the thing that I've come to realize is that when we connect, when we remember, when we awaken, we connect to our heart, we are now connected to the truth, the real truth, the universal truth, the truth that is. And so when we speak it, And we all, if you really listen, what's fascinating, if you listen to all of us talk, we all have our own individual ways of speaking, but we're all putting on and putting forth the same language, the same message. And I think that we are all, when we all connect through our hearts, we are all speaking the truth. So when we say it to somebody, that even if they may seem like they're asleep, completely asleep, the truth still is heard, and it will still resonate within their heart, because truth is truth. And I think that that's where I'm finding now that people are maybe have their vibrations have raised enough to where now when they hear a little bit of truth, they don't automatically attack. Kind of stop and go,
Nice.
oh, something about
Nicely
that
put.
is right.
It seems like the world is.
Yeah.
The world is
Go ahead.
grabbing. It seemed like maybe in 1982, the world would come up across spirituality and like shove it away unless they had to because they're a drug addict or an alcoholic, and even then it was so sterilized, that, this is your higher power, but this is helping me, but I'm very quiet about it and everything. And now people are overtly reaching towards, growing towards, they're not afraid to say, hey, this is important to my life, that,
Right.
Not just my house and my car, but my heart and my soul. And so it's, Hey, but before I forget, we're talking about dates, and I like what you said, Kathy, about it gives us all some, like having Christmas, it probably isn't Jesus' birthday, but it's a nice way to have a good holiday then, and so we all agree on that. And in that vein, tomorrow, or in Pat's case, today, is International Talk Like a Pirate Day, September 19th, so don't forget to talk like a pirate.
You have to curl, you have to take your index finger and curl it up when you say R, like a pirate. I don't know why that is, but it's part of it.
That's for your Captain Hook Hook.
Is that where that comes from? I just know that whenever I say R, I'm supposed to do my finger.
But I'd like to add something about time.
Sure.
I think that linear time is strictly and completely a component of this game here on Earth.
I agree with that, yeah.
Along with duality and polarity. I think that those don't probably happen in other worlds. I think those are things that we created to test ourselves in this reality.
I agree with that.
And I
absolutely.
also believe that time is a spiral. And as we open more and more and more to our authentic selves, we'll learn how to jump around on that spiral. We'll be able to go to the other nows from here.
Right.
Pat, that's actually very interesting because that sparks a memory in me that I had on the 21st of December 2012. I had decided shortly before the date to, I guess, sort of erase my expectation of what it could or couldn't be and just decided to flow with it. And I can remember I meditated quite a bit on that day. And you mentioned a spiral and gaining a deeper access of ourselves. I can actually remember accessing on this date and still being able to access in meditation every now and then, if and when I can get deep enough, a sort of portal that then led me to a spiral. But I've only barely been able to glimpse the spiral. But the portal actually that I came to perceive of first appeared as sort of I guess just a blue, you could say circular wall of energy maybe. It had blue qualities to it, very, very intense blue color, very real, very in your face. That tends to be the style of the higher dimensions when you open up to them in a deep fashion. And I can remember this portal actually presented itself to me in a few different ways. One of the ways it presented itself to me was actually an opened eye blinking at me. To symbolize the opening of the third eye, and I would imagine to symbolize that in reaching a greater state of consciousness. And another time, since the 21st, whenever this happened, when I've glimpsed it other times, it's actually appeared before me as a Valentine's Day heart. The typical depiction of a heart you would maybe see a kindergartner draw.
The red heart.
Yeah, exactly, red or pink heart. But it was colored blue, just like the portals have been in the past. And I'm gaining steadily greater and deeper access into that. And Pat, whenever you said that, it just kind of triggered that memory in me, and I thought I'd go ahead and express that.
Well, just let me add something to that. When I first started understanding about this spiral business, I wrote about it in my blogs. I got blue geometry behind my eyes. And I know that Marie's also had experience with the Blu-ray. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That is very interesting.
When I see, and of course this is just my understanding, and everybody has their own way, but the way that I see it is, if we think of the white light as being our source, the highest vibration, the highest frequency, the highest intelligence, the highest everything, right? All experiences. And then I think of that as the highest vibration. In a way, the way I understand it is you couldn't take that and put it into our bodies because our bodies would, explode. It's too high of a vibration. So it's almost like a step down process. And I think our souls come down in the breakdown of the rainbow, or different colors, different rays, for whatever it is that we bring in with us, and it's just like a step down process so that we can actually incarnate into our bodies. So for me, whenever I think of myself as coming down in a blue ray of light. I've always had that. Since the beginning of my remembering, I always felt surrounded by the blue ray, and I somehow call that my home. Not that I don't call the source my home, because ultimately I've always connected straight to the white light. I've never gone outside of that, but so it's a very deep, deep, deep blue, like a electric blue almost,
Exactly.
that I envision.
I think we're all describing our home. I think that, I wasn't ever given very much information about my origins. They always told me that if I knew too much, I would go home. So they never let me have very much. They told me that I come from a blue planet, the blue planet, and that my lineage is with the whales, and those are Pleiadian roots. And I think that really what's happening is that the ones who are awakening now, we awakened in the Pleiades, we awakened in Lemuria, and we're awakening now to bring it on home. And so we have these deep cellular kind of understandings about light. Now, how many people have that, really? I mean, right. It's a beautiful thing, and I think it connects us all. I think that's why Shiva is blue. I mean, I think he was Pleiadian, and that's just me. But I just think that we're all singing such beautiful, extraordinarily beautiful songs of home right now. It's just lovely to hear.
Zen, you got blue?
Yeah, I get, sometimes I'm pretty multicultural. I don't know. When you talk about the light, I'm a big fan of the invisible. When I visualize, which I try not to do actually, when I meditate, but I see that tree of life, or the mandala, the geometric aspect and everything, and I focus on the center to the point where the light surrounds the center, and there's for want of a better term, a Zen dot at the center. And it's I don't know where I read it. I wish I could cite myself better, but the invisible light of, that's contains the white light, if you will. And so, but I've had experience, talking about looking behind when you close your eyes and what you see. One of the biggest things was when I was taking all the meds from the psychiatric guys, it's like, hey, try this. I'm like, okay. And, but I know I would lay in bed and close my eyes, and, when I was taking all that different brain chemistry stuff, it really, really affected what I would see with my eyes closed, to the point where I've noted it and everything. And now it's so reassuring to me to be able to access, to know when things get squirrely or whatever, is just to kind of sit with that moment and find that spot that is there all the time. And it's just a necessary reminder to myself. And it's like, oh yeah, everything's cool, But it's for me that, I guess, I don't know where I came across that when I was reading, and it just like really pinged on me, the idea of the invisible light. And I mean, I'm a sun starer, and I love light. I mean, I love all the colors. If people say, what's your favorite color? And I say rainbow, but it's not a gay thing.
It's a thing with love and light.
No, that's color. That's really profound. I find it very healing to imagine breathing in rainbow spirals and rainbow Star of Davids. and breathing that out. That's very helpful. There was something that you said that was really very kind of lyrical when the invisible light within the light, and it kind of speaks to the void and to the creator of the creator. But when I was doing some work, I would find when I was very deep into it, when I was starting, especially this spring, there's this notion of what lies between the in-breath and the out-breath, that space right there. And I guess that's a yogi thing, but that space is a very sacred space, and it's the space of all questions and all answers, and it seems to me like you're tapping into the same source when you're looking at that invisible light. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, I dig it. It's good stuff. Omniscience wrote a blog the other day, and somewhere in it she said zero is the dreamer. And I think in terms of the Fibonacci sequence, it goes 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, yada, yada, yada. But the mystery in that sequence, you can look at it and it's like, oh, yeah, you add these two together. But it's like, well, what gets it started? What makes it go from 0 to 1? And so it's in that's where the creation takes place, or that's where the
space in between.
Know. Yeah. Oh, I know what I was going to say a second. Just listen real quick. Is the idea that we exist, we're somethings, we're all these little somethings, right? But so you can individualize every something that is, whether it's the bottle of water there, or my foot, or me, or the air, or that's all something. But all the somethings, everything that you would consider matter or energy or anything, exists within a single nothing. In other words, the nothing that holds that water bottle is the same nothing that holds my foot, which is the same nothing connected to the nothing that's holding Pat on the other side of the planet, and Jupiter up there. It's one nothing holding all these individual somethings. And so it's just me, because it's just what my focus of study has been. It's really easy to do.
Well, I can imagine our entire reality, every little something that you've mentioned, being created in the etheric realms before it's, I guess you could say, sent on down to exist here. Perhaps we could begin to see that nothing as much more something than the somethings, Maybe we can see that nothing as, or perhaps the space that the nothing is or exists in as the creator of all of the somethings, all of the material things or material reality around us. We can come to see that we're actually bred from what you could call metaphysical realms,
And we're all inside of it still. That's the thing, is that but it's a free will choice, is that we choose. Carl Jung wrote these things called Sermons to the Dead, right? And in one of the very first ones, he starts talking about, he goes, well, you're part of everything and everything is everything. But then he says, but if you think like that, it's going to drive you crazy. So we're going to differentiate, we're not going to think like that anymore. We're going to. And so it's interesting, and so that's what I guess meditation allows, or fancy, or whatever, is it allows us to sit in that incredible zero or whatever, and just look around, and it's like, and so there's no up, we think about ascension as going up and raising ourselves and going up, and I always think, well, down there in Yara, man, her up is my down, so that's all pretty much relative, and so to sit, and that idea of sitting in a free fall, somebody came across the concept that the natural state of existence isn't gravity, which would be maybe a cellular agreement to all. It's like, let's all gather together here on this planet, and we'll use the same periods of time measurements so that we all have the same experience. We're all going to do this together. But that we can also be in a moment of free fall where it doesn't matter, free fall is only scary if you look like you're going to hit something, but if you're just there, it's
right.
It's just windy.
Yeah,
it's just on how you look at it.
If I could,
it depends on your perspective.
That brings a word to mind that I'd like to toss out on the table: surrender.
Flow.
It's one of my favorite words.
Absolutely. Surrender to the now and to the flow of events, because if we try to control our reality or exert mental control, we're only employing distortion, which will then keep us back from the higher dimensions.
Well,
I think that if we do it, we're just acting out a misinterpretation of the data, really, if we do that, because we're creating this as we go along. This is our creation. And so for us to say that this is something that is outside of us or not within our ken is really not being absolutely clear about what's happening. I mean, and I think that for me, and then I'm only speaking for myself. I mean, for me, a lot of things get unteased when I realize that what I'm aware of at this moment is something that I have brought to me. I've called it to me, and if it's unpleasant, then there's a good reason for it. And I may not understand it right now, but I can at least show grace while I'm going through it, and patience, and surrender and trust. And so, because I don't believe that I'm ever going to be harmed. It's why would we go around harming ourselves? Because it's us who are creating the events. So any harm that's being done, I don't know, I tend to think like time, it's very easy to put it down. It's very easy to put down 3D and to not like it very much because it's slow and plodding and dumb and coarse. But it's sort of like if you've got a book in your hand, then you might know all about it. But until you read word for word and sentence by sentence, you don't get to experience it. And so is it bad that we're in full-on experience mode? I think that's what it's about. I think when I judge my experience and think myself wrong or someone else wrong and think unloving thoughts, then I don't have a very good time. And then I want to adjust that because I'm not telling myself a story that's in alignment with what's true, which is that we know there's no one here who's an enemy. Yeah. And that's what I had to say.
Surrendering to me, it's like forgiveness. There's a lot of forgiveness in surrendering too. And I wish I had a step-by-step process because I don't know. I know that for now, for me to surrender is very, very easy to do compared to back when I used to have what I call my full mental capacities, which are now gone. And so, so surrendering for me is releasing and forgiving myself and forgiving others. And accepting that whatever it is that has happened at that moment, wherever it is that I am standing, whatever all it has happened, I have to trust and have faith that it happened for a reason. And I may never understand it, and I never may see the reason for it. It may never ever affect me in any other way, but there's a reason for it. And I think that part of accepting that you are within your own individual beautiful self part of the great all and part of the divine plan, and that you are here playing a very specific role, and you really did sign up for it, and that part of the surrendering for me has become so much easier now. And but it was such a arduous path to get there, and I wish I had a better recollection of how I did it so I could help others do it too. It's such a solitary individual path, but forgiveness of self, I think, is what starts us in the path to surrendering.
I think myself personally that the one thing, if you had to name one thing that opens the door to all of this, I don't think anybody ever really knows themselves until they learn to love themselves unconditionally.
Yeah.
Accept yourself for the mistakes that you make. It's easy to perceive ourselves as bad or as, any lower interpretation of ourselves we could breed because of a low mood we may be in at that moment, or what we could perceive as a lower action that we committed. It's important to know that we're all human. We're all growing and learning, and I think that surrendering and forgiveness is a part of that overall acceptance and love of us in every facet of ourselves as divine spiritual beings.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on who you're surrendering to. Would be the question I would have. I mean, there's giving up. I like to call it giving up because of that whole ascension thing, and that we aspire to something higher, so that when I may surrender something, I'm actually giving it up, and it has the flavor of sacrifice or offering, and so I'm not giving it up. And then the other thing is something that you may not want to give up as far as it has no worth. you want to leave it behind. Well, that implies that you have to continue to move. In other words, if you have something that doesn't serve, right? And you don't want it anymore, and you want to give it up, you have to keep moving. You have to move dynamic. You have to be dynamic situation, because you can't expect that thing to go away from you. You have to go away from it.
Exactly.
And so, as far as then surrendering, the giving up, I go back to the whole of what we're talking about as far as the suicidality. Anyway, the idea of getting exasperated with your, and there's the word again, it's the exhale, right? So we go through and we've got this whole 3D opportunity here presented for us, and we get so mired in it that it feels like that's all there is, and we hate it, and it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want this anymore. So we exhale and we surrender and we put it away and we go back to zero, and we sit there and we go, oh, I got a free will choice. I can sit here and or I've got this opportunity to continue on with this creation that I'm working with. And it's just an illusion, and it's all, for purposes of demonstration, but, why not? So, yeah, hey, so now we've stopped surrendering, we're picking it up again. It's just like a respiration. It's an in-breath, out-breath sort of thing. It seems to me.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I think of surrender, when I think of that word, I think of complete surrender to one's own soul. I have a really hard time, maneuvering among, I'm a nurse. I work among nerds and scientific folk, and talking about this stuff is not acceptable. And so it's very 3D where I live and work. And so how, the question comes, how do I translate that? And what I find is the things that I find distressing other people may not even notice. And what has helped me so much is to stop being afraid of dropping into the oldest part of myself, or the part that I know is, that I surrender to, that I know is true and honest and real, and that is benevolent. And but sometimes I just can't catch myself. Sometimes I get caught up in the nonsense and begin to feel like I'm alone, struggling against an opponent, and then things become awful for a moment, and then I can begin to realize, wait a minute, the breath comes, like you said, the breath comes in, the breath comes out, and bad shits just don't happen very much anymore, because I just feel like everybody I meet is a friend. And who wants to really be mean to a friend? Only people who are not feeling well or psychiatrically compromised. And I work as a psych nurse and as a med surg nurse, so I take my punches, and it's cool, and we just move on. But that to me is being present within it. I was told by the teachers a long time ago, listen, that what ascension really means in the boots on the ground sense is that what a master does, no matter what happens to a master, it blows right through them. They don't have any eddies anymore. They have no energetic tugs, no hooks.
Hello?
Hello?
And everything just blows through them. They don't take things personally. They love everybody. That's the goal.
Absolutely.
Uh-oh. Am I gone?
Rory.
So that's kind of what I think.
Yeah.
Let me toss another word out there. Ascension.
Wow. Man, I have a problem with that word.
We're all burned on ascension. Everybody goes, oh.
I don't think ascension is actually the right word. I think what we're doing is descending. We're descending.
How about transcending?
Okay, so we're bringing down our souls into our physicality.
Into this reality. That's the way I see it.
To help the planet's vibration rise.
Yeah,
so that the consciousness of the planets can rise as well.
Yeah.
So we're descending and ascending at the same time, so no wonder we're such a mess. We don't know what's going on.
Because it makes you think of the light descending like into your eyes and into your feet.
Because if you stop and think about it for a minute, when you're in that space, which we all understand what that space is, we're there with our own selves. And I believe that our self extends across all kinds of dimensions, and that we have aspects of ourselves across all the dimensions.
I think that too.
And for some reason, we set this game up with the idea that we would try to get all of our highest self into the densest, dare I say, crappiest game in the universe.
Yeah, whatever serves. Where can we best be put to use is the idea. We could all be great to sit on top of the mountaintop and wait to get beamed into, ice cubes of light or whatever. Yeah. That would be super awesome, but none of us feels like that is, we got this compassion, and so you go to do your stuff, and you go and you think, you have these just incredible moments, meditative moments, reflective moments where you literally are all things that are, and you span the universe, and then you got to go to work, and somebody's whining about stubbing their toe and everything, and all you can do is come to them from the universe and say, man, that sucks. Are you okay? You want some ice for your toe or something, and sometimes it seems kind of like petty and pedestrian and everything, but waffling around in the clouds is not doing anybody any good.
Right. It's safe to say that we're gonna naturally take a lot of flack. We're gonna go through a lot of difficulty. A lot of what we experience is gonna ultimately be a catalyst for our greater awakening and understanding. But it really just goes back to the matter of perception, how you choose to see the experiences you're undergoing. Obviously, don't fool yourself and try to tell yourself, oh well, I had an awful day today, but the day wasn't awful, everything was great. Don't try to paint a false picture of your experiences, but embrace the bad, or what you could perceive as the bad. Embrace the difficult, and know that you come from a place where you can more than handle it. You can handle it, to say the least, even though it seems, perhaps it seems sometimes like you can't.
Mm-hmm. That's so nicely put. That's so true. I like what Cryon says. It makes me feel very good sometimes when I am looking up off my coffee cup at 3 a.m. And he says, your job, if you have to have a job here, it is to hold light in dark places. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. That's what I've always considered my job to be, was to anchor 5D energies here to this planet.
Into this.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That is my complete understanding of my mission too. When all is said and done, to be a vessel to the light in whichever way is needed at that perfect divine moment for the highest good of all. And you know what? I'm just along for the trip, enjoying it, and then at the same time expanding and finally seeing this earth, as the beautiful place that it really and truly is. Because I think for me, I of course, just my experience, I've only really seen this earth for the last 2 years. So I'm really 2 years old. Yeah. Wes is older than me by 18 years. You know what I'm saying? So I think I think that, I don't know why my brain now is just going to this. We are now starting to awaken, see the earth for the beautiful place that it really is. And more and more are doing that, more and more awakening and seeing what's really happening, and seeing the dark aspects of it as well as the light aspects, because you have to have dark for the light to expand and vice versa. If we were all in a white room 24/7, how would we know anything of what was that? How would we even know that we are in the light? We have to have, and that's why I think we come here as souls, is to experience and remember what love is not, so that we can better understand who we are, which is love. Because I think when all is said and done, that's all there is. And, I just think, I don't know what I think anymore. I don't think anymore, but I feel, just the earth is expanding with me. I don't know if you guys are feeling this. I don't know if it's the grid or the energies coming in. But it isn't just the souls around me, other humans that are awakening, expanding. I feel the earth itself is expanding. Everything, the plants, the animals, the water, something about water. I don't know what is going on with water right now, but it's really changing. There's just the shift seems to be happening at every single level that I can sense. And I don't know if you guys are feeling like that, or if it's just...
I don't see how it could be any other way.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you said was about if you're in a white room, how would you know anything? Isn't that exactly why we're created? Isn't that exactly what the creator source put us here for? To experience itself?
Yes,
Right.
the purpose of coming to know and experience every facet of our existence. Perhaps the reason we chose to create and then funnel ourselves down to these more distorted realms, so we could enjoy ourselves, I guess, really create and experience as much as possible and come to know ourselves as the creators of those experiences.
Right.
Dude, you need to go on the lecture circuit, Wes. We need to see you out there with opening for David Icke or something. I'm serious. You're really, really well spoken. You come across as making perfect sense to me.
Well, I have a lot of years ahead of me, so we'll see where things go.
I just want to add, if I could, that I think that it's the whole thing is so fascinating. We, like you has said, Marie. Is it Marie or Maria?
It's Marie.
Marie. That each of us have our own way of having experienced this and having decoded it, and that, of course, has a lot to do with where we've been and who we've been, and that's the mystery and the fun of it. But it seems to me that I find that I have always kind of been off-putting toward people, especially if I start talking about this, it's off-putting, and it hurts me when I see that this thing that I love so much is turned away from it. It just breaks my heart. And so I found a workaround, and it's compassionate action. I don't have to say a ding-dang thing about energetics or light grids or my higher self or anything. And baby, I know my esoterics, but I don't have to say any of that. All I have to do is be kind and to embody compassion, to have a compassionate mind, and to have that mind. I don't think ascension is the best word. I think the best word is meld. I think melding with our higher self, that's a portal that opens up and we can go anywhere we want. And that to me is, it sort of takes all the religious fervor away from it and just makes it so homespun. It's just who we really are shining through more, and it's easiest to do that it's easiest to get back home when we're compassionate to ourselves by doing what excites us or makes us happy, and by going the extra mile for someone else and actually going out of our way to give love to someone who actually might not even deserve it. That to me is shedding light. I can meditate all I want, but I have been the person who's been in need of that light. And so I know what it feels like to be bereft and desperate for somebody feeling something other than what I feel for myself, which is contempt. And so to have someone reach in and love me just as I am, that to me is the miracle on earth. I don't think that there needs to be a God. I don't know if there has to be angels. That is the miracle. That is God in action. So that's how I see it anyway.
I absolutely agree with you. I think that, and it's such a personal thing. That's why it's so hard to talk about. We all struggle to articulate what's happening. Anybody hearing me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
you're good.
Anyway, and so one of the things, it is nice to just do it, but it's so nice, don't you think, to come here and hug, to be able to have this opportunity. I feel really to talk, Well, but
I feel
this four people that are sitting right here right now talking into these microphones, it's a little community of being able to talk about stuff that you can't talk about at work, or I can't talk about with my fan. It's just different, and so this support is part of the process that we're all working towards. This coming together of this little four people, and maybe the recording that comes out of it is a big part of what it is. When we scratch our heads, when we're feeling all wonderful, and we look around, and it's like, well, what can I do to help? And it seems like all of us speaking and trying to articulate our terms and sharing about how it feels to do whatever it is or be however, And again, and I don't think any one of us would put ourselves above any of those people that are in a different place. You know, it's just not. It's just there where that's where they are and where we are.
I also have like an. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Like a really strong inner urge, and I don't know if any of you have felt it as well, that it's time for us to unite with like-minded individuals, with others that are. I'm getting a very strong inner calling that it is time for us to come together, and I, you know, like, and I myself I have incredibly blessed to have a core group of about 10 very awake people like me that speak exactly my language and they are even more freaky deaky than me. They freak me out, and that group, I will tell you, has come together for me maybe in the last 6 weeks, and it was fast. And it seemed to be we're soul family members coming together. There's just a great instant recognition and communication and love. And I think that this is also the next step of where we're all moving towards. Is, you know, this us that we've been drawn together for this today. I think that this is going to start happening more and more. We're going to start to, you know, following the law of attraction, of course. We're going to be drawn more and more to coming together, to being a voice together, and to supporting each other, to be each other's family. Because the reality is that for many of us, reaching out to our families, the families who we're born into, they don't feel like our families anymore. You know, they don't speak the same language. They don't address always in the same way. It's just, it is the way it is. And so I think we're building families, soul families, and we're physically coming together to accelerate each other, to fly ideas off of each other like we're doing now, and to continue to take this revolution or evolution or whatever you want to call it, ascension or whatever, and really move it forward. And I feel like that's the next step, that we've done all this inner work, you know, and now we're starting to turn our eyes outwards and look to see how together as a force we can bring the change that we wish to see in the world. Does that make sense? Or is anybody feeling that too?
Yeah. I actually feel, and I noticed in a recent blog of Wes's, to me, doing this radio show was my call. I looked at a blog that Wes wrote last week or the other day, and he said channeling was no longer his focus. His focus was getting to be service. So I think there actually is a call that some of us are feeling, that it's time to do exactly like you said, get out there and wave the flag.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Focus on various aspects of our earth that we know are ready to be moved into the new paradigm, moved into the light. Obviously, I would happily still continue to channel, perform light work, anchor the higher dimensions, but at the same time, I've come to a place of realizing the work that needs done in the physical, and we've all been mentioning light workers coming together, and could you imagine the various projects we would all be able to start? Even just the 5 of us could get some kind of grassroots project probably going if we had enough faith that Source would help manifest it through us. So I couldn't imagine hundreds, thousands, millions of light workers coming together and just starting all of these organizations, all of these projects, all of these things bent on exposing corruption and tyranny, exposing the powers that were, building a new paradigm, a new planetary ruling body, you know, giving food and water to impoverished countries, just like I mentioned in that blog. There's so much to be done in the physical and higher dimensional sense, and I believe we can continue to happily do that work from and for the higher dimensions, channeling, light work, that type of thing, because it's essential to do still. Now that we've regained that perception of the higher dimensions, it's still essential for us to do, and yet at the same time, the importance of, I guess, addressing everything about this physical reality we're ready to see move into the light or into a new paradigm. That importance, I guess, just couldn't be expressed enough right now in this new era that we're entering.
Yeah.
Do you hear out there, radio listener, do you hear this? Are you a future person that's going to hear this recording? Are you inspired by this conversation and these people? Because we're all just like you, just a bunch of schmoes sitting around wondering what to do with ourselves and how to make the world a better place. But we are, and I mean, you know, calling it work sometimes seems silly because I really love hearing. I mean, I love talking to you all, and I love to hear the stories and your voices and little faces, and I just love it. It's just so fun. So, you know. It's only the only work is for me to parse out, you know, to be awake and aware and conscious and present at this particular time when everybody gathers together is about all there is it takes for me. And I just love it. And I just want to speak to that audience out there and inspire them and question them and challenge them to see what it is that they could do.
Well,
go ahead, Pat.
Excuse me. I'd like to correct one thing you said there before you go any further.
Good. I love to be corrected.
We're not average schmoes. We are ordinary magicians.
Ah, that's right. Very good.
Very true.
Ordinary magicians.
You know, Marie and Wes kind of make me realize that I think that, you know, Wes, what you're doing, I think, Marie, you're talking about us as a group sort of being activated. I feel like I've been on idle for so long, and I think a lot of us on the blogosphere have been feeling kind of, when's it going to happen? Come on. And I do think that there is a bit of that going on, that there's this inner pulling toward each other. And Wes, what you're doing is so exciting to me. I have a 13-year-old who is a very beautiful boy, and so just such a wonderful child. And I'm so excited, and it puts me at odds with some of the folks I work with, because they want to see the world the same way I used to. I'm so excited because look at who we've got on this panel. A kid who's 20 years old who is talking about the highest priority being businesses and institutions which reek of integrity and honesty and transparency. We need that so much, and we need you to be your age, you know, because I'm too old. I'm not too old. I'm just not interested. And I have too much of a checkered past. I could not get into politics, so it's not on my agenda. But
I was just thinking a minute ago.
Well, the whole thing will transform politics.
Oh, how fun. Kathy, you're really awesome. Hey, I'm gonna begin the ending here I'm gonna read a poem, because I've decided I'm gonna read one of my poems every time I do one of these shows.
Wonderful.
So this is a reason I joined Lightworkers, is because I had written this poem, because the poems come out of me like, you know, they just ooze out of me. And anyway, I had this one floating around and I didn't know what to do with it. Yeah, I guess it's a channeling, yeah. Anyway, and it goes like this. It's called The Encouragement for Lightworkers, the Argument of Zen Deviant. Shine bright in darkening days, that one more heart may be opened, one more mind freed. In prayer, no fear, fearless care only for truth, and cannot be threatened by a lying jury. Shining, fearless, meek, bear the hope of all, fed by daily bread, recognizing only in person. Words to encourage and challenge are sharpened and turned on their authors. The trickster turns hunger to starvation. Truth-finding love is our only salvation. And there's that.
That's lovely.
Wow, lovely. Very nice.
Thank you.
Anyway, and so on that high note of my poetic prowess, I will bid you all, I'm going to say farewell for this evening, and also to our radio listeners, cosmically wide. Thank you for joining us all. And I'm pretty sure, like the Daily Show, they always have a conversation going on. You guys are going to continue to chit-chat here, but I'm going to say farewell for now, and I love you all.
Love you too, Zen.
Love you too.
Thank you
so much.
Actually, we've got a little over an hour and a half. I think we might close it down.
Okay. All right.
I think that.
Well, that was. Thank you. That was really just. It was wonderful. So nice to hear everybody's perspective, and it's just. I know I'm going to have a lot to think about tonight, to feel about, and I'm just so grateful. So thank you so much for including me.
What comes next is each of you I'll ask each of you to do an individual show. This one really was to sort of get practice with the radio and get to know each other. But I would like each of you to come on the show separately and do like a proper interview.
Sure, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Let me know when you want. It'll be fine.
Yeah, anytime.
Okay, thanks so much,
Anytime.
guys. I think we made a great video show.
I think
we made a great vortex of love.
See you.
Oh, absolutely.
Bye.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.